Smoke filled the sky like a second storm as the alien fleet descended from the upper clouds. Cities burned. Signals went silent. Satellites vanished without warning. No declaration, no mercy. Just war, the human colonies on Varela 9 never saw. It coming. One moment, children played near crystal lakes. The next, energy blasts reduced homes to ash. The invaders were not just strong. They were precise, organized, cold. Sergeant Caleb Rowan had survived 5 planetary campaigns, but nothing like this. The enemy moved like shadows. Their weapons tore through titanium walls like paper. Their green-skinned warriors showed no fear, no hesitation, no expression. Human command ordered a retreat within the first 12 hours. Varela 9 was officially lost. Caleb didn't retreat. Not because of orders, not because of bravery. He had made a promise to protect the outpost children before the first shot was ever fired. Now, he crawled through burning debris, carrying a wounded child in one arm and his rifle in the other. Behind him, buildings crumbled like sandcastles under thunder. In front of him, nothing but more fire. Caleb didn't make it far. Plasma fire cracked through the air. The blast threw him into a collapsed shuttle. His helmet cracked. His cums died. The world spun as the screams faded away. But something else moved in the smoke. She had green skin, silver hair, armor dark as night and covered in strange runes. She was not human, not friendly. She was the enemy. And she was bleeding out beside him. Caleb stared at her in confusion. She had been chasing him moments ago. Now her blood soaked the floor. Her breathing was shallow. Her eyes blinked open, weak and slow. She reached for something, then collapsed again. Caleb had a choice. The smart choice was to finish her. The tactical one was to run, but he had never been smart in moments like this. He dragged her behind the remains of the shuttle and checked her wounds. Her chest plate was cracked. There's a hole near her heart. She was losing blood fast. But something about her face maybe looked scared, vulnerable, like she hadn't expected to be left behind. He had a field kit. Only one transfusion pod. It was meant for humans, not aliens, not enemies. He hesitated, gripping the injector in his hand. One pulse. One chance. He stared at the blood covering his arm. Then he acted. The injector hissed. Caleb's blood mixed with hers. He didn't know what would happen. Maybe she'd die anyway. Maybe his blood would poison her. Maybe she'd wake up and kill him. But for some reason, he couldn't let her die like that. The skies thundered again. Dropships passed overhead. The ground shook with the sound of war. But under that ruined shuttle, 2 enemies bled together in silence. Caleb rested against a broken wall, keeping his rifle close. The alien girl's breathing was still uneven, but steadier now. Her body glowed faintly where his blood entered her veins. Something ancient stirred in her biology. He didn't understand her language. She didn't understand his. But as her fingers twitched and her lips parted, he knew one thing clearly. She wasn't just any soldier. She was important. And now, somehow, he had changed her fate. In a world broken by fire and death, one human had offered blood to the enemy. And that small act would change everything. The wind howled through the ruins like a ghost searching for lost names. Night had fallen on Varela 9, and the fires that had once lit the cities were now just dying embers in a graveyard of steel. Caleb didn't sleep. He couldn't. Every sound made his finger twitch near the trigger. The alien girl still lay beside him under the broken shuttle, her armor stained with dried blood, her breathing low and strange. He checked her pulse again. It was stronger than before, warmer. Her skin, once cold as stone, now held a flicker of heat. His blood was still inside her veins. What if it had changed her? What if it had done more than save her? Then her eyes opened. They glowed faintly in the dark, silver like moonlight over ice. She gasped, hand rising quickly to her chest, where the wound used to be. Her fingers moved over the armor, trembling. Then she saw him. Caleb raised both hands slowly to show he meant no harm. She blinked, her gaze locked onto the blood stains. Her expression shifted from fear to confusion. Then, for the first time, she spoke. A soft whisper in a language he couldn't understand. But the way she looked at him, the way her voice broke, it wasn't a threat. It was a question. Caleb leaned forward. "I'm not your enemy," he said quietly. "I just didn't want to see you die." She didn't understand the words, but somehow, she understood the meaning. She touched his arm. Her fingers felt the dried blood on his wrist. Then she looked down at her own body, at the wound that wasn't there anymore. She looked like someone who had just woken from a nightmare and didn't know where the dream ended. Suddenly, her body spasmed. She let out a soft cry and collapsed. Forward, Caleb caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin glowed where his hands touched her. Not just warm, luminous, like something inside her was waking up. He laid her back down carefully. The glow faded slowly. She clutched his arm again. Tighter this time. Her strength was returning, but her eyes showed fear. Not of him, of herself. He didn't know what was happening. His blood had done something impossible. He opened his med scanner, but the screen glitched the moment he scanned her. The readings were unstable. Her cells were rewriting themselves. The human blood wasn't killing her. It was changing her. From outside the wreckage, voices rose in the distance. Alien soldiers, a patrol. Caleb turned off the scanner and drew his weapon. The girl gripped his other arm. She shook her head. Then, with her last bit of strength, she whispered something urgent and pointed to the west. It wasn't random. She was guiding him. Caleb looked where she pointed. Beyond the collapsed hangar and cratered street, a thin line of trees marked the edge of the wildlands. A place the invaders hadn't burned yet. A place they might not search. He looked back at her. She tried to sit up but failed. Her armor was too heavy. Her body too weak. Without thinking, he pulled off his own jacket and wrapped it around her. Then he hoisted her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected. Or maybe he was just numb to pain now. The sound of footsteps outside grew closer. He moved quickly, slipping into the shadows, carrying a miracle in his arms. As he ran through smoke and ash, she held onto him with surprising trust. A bond had formed between them, not of words, not of duty, but of survival, of something ancient, something neither of them yet understood. Behind them, the invaders searched for one of their own. They didn't know that she was already something else now, no longer just one of them. No longer just a soldier. She was something new, and he had made her that way, asterisk. Caleb ran until his legs shook beneath him. Every breath burned in his chest. The alien girl was still in his arms, her body weak but alive. Behind them, searchlights scanned through black smoke and broken towers. He ducked beneath a collapsed structure made of black stone alloy. The roof hung low, almost scraping his head. Inside it was quiet, except for the sound of her breathing. She lay still, but her eyes remained open, watching him, studying him. She didn't speak, but her gaze followed every motion. Like she was trying to understand him, or maybe herself. Caleb dropped to his knees and set her down gently. He checked her pulse again. Still strong, still glowing faintly. She was stabilizing. But what scared him was how much better she looked than a few hours ago. His blood had healed her. That was clear now, but there was something else. Her skin shimmered faintly, like something was alive inside it. Something new. She reached up suddenly and touched his face. He froze. Her fingers brushed across his cheek. She seemed fascinated by his skin, his features, the warmth of his blood still on his arm. Then she pointed to herself, slowly, carefully, then pointed to him. Her fingers tapped her chest once. Then his, then both. It was a question, or maybe a statement. Caleb nodded, unsure what she truly meant, but she gave a small nod back. As if something had been confirmed. He whispered, "You're not alone anymore." She didn't understand the words. But her fingers curled around his wrist and didn't let go. The next few hours passed in silence. He made a small fire using debris from the structure's edge. The glow danced across her face. She didn't fear it. She watched it like someone who had never seen warmth before. Caleb wrapped both of them in a thermal blanket. She leaned closer, slowly, like a creature learning trust for the first time. She didn't pull away when his shoulder touched hers. The bond between them was not romantic. It was something deeper, something ancient and buried. It felt written in blood. In the middle of the night, her body jerked. She gasped and clutched her stomach. Her eyes glowed again, brighter this time. Caleb reached for her, but she sat up. Suddenly, symbols appeared across her skin. Glowing veins formed alien runes across her neck, arms, and chest. She looked terrified. Then, without warning, she let out a cry and collapsed into his arms. Caleb held her tightly, unsure of what to do. His blood was changing her faster than before. Her body was rejecting something, or becoming something new. He whispered again, hoping his voice could calm her. "It's okay, I'm here. I won't leave you." She stopped shaking. Her breathing slowed. She rested her head against his chest. The glow faded into her skin once more. The runes disappeared like mist. He didn't sleep. He just held her as the wind outside howled again. He had never believed in fate. But right now, it felt like something had chosen both of them for a reason. Morning light broke through a crack in the rubble. Caleb looked at her peaceful face and knew one truth above all. She was no longer the same as the ones hunting her. And neither was he. The sun had barely risen when the first scout drone appeared in the sky. Its blue sensors flickered between the smoke trails, scanning every movement with brutal precision. Caleb saw it from a distance while gathering salvage from a nearby wreck. He dropped the metal panel in his hand and rushed back toward the shelter. If the drone scanned too close, it would spot the girl. She was awake now, sitting up, watching the world through a small crack in the wall. Her eyes met his the moment he stepped inside. She had seen it too. Caleb didn't speak. He grabbed the last of their supplies, tightened the straps of his gear, and motioned for her to follow. She stood slowly, her steps still shaky but more stable than before. Outside, the wind carried the drone's low hum. Caleb led them through the rubble like shadows. No noise, no hesitation. He moved as if he had done this 100 times. But the girl didn't just follow. She mimicked him, step for step. Every time he paused, she paused. Every glance over his shoulder was met with hers. It wasn't just survival. It was sync. They moved through the broken city like ghosts. Caleb noticed how the light bounced off her skin now, softer, more human. But the glow still pulsed beneath the surface. Whatever change had begun inside her had not stopped. Then they reached the old sky bridge. It was half collapsed. Steel cables dangled above a 50-meter drop. But it was the only way across the crater. The drone's buzz grew louder behind them. Caleb turned to her. "We don't have time. Trust me." She looked at the gap, then at him. Without speaking, she stepped onto the broken ledge. The metal groaned under their weight, but they moved fast. Caleb first, then her. He didn't look down. Neither did she. When they reached the other side, he collapsed onto the ground, breathing hard. She knelt beside him, placing a hand on his back. He looked at her hand, then her face. There was no fear there, no confusion, only trust. A sound cracked behind them, a gunshot. A patrol had spotted them. The girl's eyes widened. Caleb grabbed her hand and ran. Blaster fire scorched the ground around them. They sprinted through burned-out vehicles, past walls marked with battle scars. Caleb's arm shielded her as plasma rounds sliced through the air. They dove into a side tunnel. A maintenance shaft from before the invasion. Dark, narrow, silent. Caleb held her against the wall as the sounds of the patrol passed above. She touched her chest. Then his, then crossed her fingers tightly. He didn't know her words, but he understood the meaning. They were bound now, Caleb nodded. He reached into his pouch and showed her the last item inside a map. Scratched and damaged, but readable. He pointed to a place far beyond the city ruins. An old outpost in the mountains. A safe zone. She studied the map. Then tapped a symbol written in her language near the same location. Her people had known of it too. Something ancient was buried. There, something she now feared and needed to find. Caleb rolled up the map. Whatever had begun inside her, it had awakened something more than just survival. It was a memory, a code, a call to something larger. She stood and offered her hand to him. Her fingers glowed slightly as they touched his, not just warm now. Alive, together. They stepped out of the tunnel and into a world still on fire. But for the first time, neither of them walked alone. Whatever future waited beyond the horizon, it would not be built by enemies. It would be built by what they were becoming. The mountain winds cut like blades as Caleb and the girl climbed through the ruins of an ancient outpost. Snow had begun to fall, painting the broken towers white. Their breaths came out in clouds, and each step sank into frozen ground. They had traveled for days, dodging patrols, hiding from drones, sharing rations. Neither of them said much, but a rhythm had formed between them. It was not the silence of strangers. It was the silence of survivors. Now at the top of the ridge, the outpost finally came into view. Massive doors of black steel stood half buried. In ice, old human tech, forgotten, left behind in the early days of expansion. Caleb reached out and brushed snow from the access panel. The girl watched him closely. Her eyes flickered with recognition. She moved toward a side wall covered in alien glyphs. She ran her fingers across the symbols like tracing memories buried beneath dust. The door hissed open slowly, releasing a gust of warm air. They stepped inside. The corridor lights blinked to life. Power still pulsed in the veins of the facility. Caleb led them forward, rifle ready. But the girl stopped suddenly. She stared at a glass panel built into the wall. Behind it were stasis pods, hundreds of them. Empty. Then she touched the panel and it responded. Her presence activated the system. Holographic data spilled into the air. Caleb stepped back as symbols danced and twisted. Then the system translated one word into English. Seed host. Caleb looked at her. Her expression had changed. No longer confused. Now she looked afraid. She placed her hand over her chest. Then over the panel. She said a single word. It echoed through the corridor with weight. Caleb didn't know the meaning, but he felt the importance. He took a slow breath. This isn't just about survival, is it? She didn't answer with words. Instead, she brought up her sleeve and showed him the veins glowing beneath her skin. They pulsed in rhythm. But now there was something else. A faint heartbeat, not hers. Not his. Caleb's chest tightened. The transfusion had changed her. That? He already knew, but this was more. Her body was carrying something new. Something created between them. They didn't need to speak to understand what it meant. She had become a bridge between species. Between war and peace. Between destruction and something new. Suddenly, the facility lights turned red. Warning sirens howled. Motion sensors had triggered outside the gate. A strike force was approaching fast. Caleb raised his weapon and checked the exits. They had no time to run. The girl stepped forward and touched the floor. The structure responded to her. The walls shimmered. Doors sealed. A hidden chamber opened. She led him inside. It was a control room, filled with dormant technology. She moved with purpose now, like someone who had finally remembered who she was. She pointed to the central console. He placed his hand on it. The machine read him. Human DNA confirmed. Then her hand joined his. The console glowed brighter than before. 2 bloodlines. 1 signal. A surge of light shot through the system. For the first time in years, the outpost fully awakened. They weren't just hiding now, they were preparing. For what came next? The outpost walls trembled as explosions echoed outside. Enemy drop pods struck the mountain, drilling into the snow like metal fangs. The strike force had arrived. Inside the control room, Caleb tightened his grip on the weapon. His breathing slowed. His mind focused. The girl stood beside him, her fingers glowing as she interacted with the ancient interface. More systems came online. Holographic defenses lit up across the walls. The outpost wasn't just a shelter. It was a relic of human experiments long buried. The girl knew how to awaken them. She pointed toward a dormant platform in the center of the room. The stone cracked open, revealing a single capsule glowing with green and red veins. Caleb stepped forward, but she stopped him with a hand on his chest. She entered alone. Her body stood tall in the capsule as energy wrapped around her. Her skin shimmered. Her eyes closed. Her veins pulsed with light. Then the interface spoke in a cold mechanical voice. Hybrid connection confirmed. Activation. In progress, Caleb's heart pounded. He didn't know what was happening, but he trusted her. She had chosen this. Not out of fear, but purpose. The room began to shake harder. Enemy soldiers breached the outer corridor. Plasma bolts tore through steel. Caleb moved fast, setting up defenses. Automated turrets rose from the walls. Shields activated across the entrance. He stood alone before the sealed door, weapon drawn, breath steady. He could hear them marching closer. Dozens of them. He checked his last mag. Only a few rounds left. Still he smiled. Behind him, the chamber pulsed brighter. The girl floated now, her body suspended in light. Symbols danced across her skin. Her chest rose and fell with calm strength. She had become something else. The console spoke again. Host body transformation nearing completion. Foreign elements stabilized. New life form registered. Caleb's eyes widened. She wasn't just healing anymore. She was evolving. The blood they shared had rewritten both her body and destiny. The door behind him burst open. Enemies poured in. Caleb opened fire. Shots rang out. Sparks filled the room. His arm burned with recoil. But he didn't back down. He was buying her time. The soldiers were fast, efficient, but he was desperate. He moved like a shadow, using every scrap of cover. He took hits. Felt pain, still stood. Still fired. Until the last round clicked empty. Then everything stopped. A wave of green light erupted from the chamber. The attackers froze in place. Their weapons shattered. Their armor cracked. Their bodies dropped one by one, as if something greater had judged them unworthy. Caleb turned slowly. She stood there, awake now, eyes glowing with layered rings of light. Her wounds completely gone. Her posture strong. Her presence overwhelming. The transformation was complete. She stepped toward him and placed her hand on his chest. The same glow passed into him. His wounds faded. His breath returned. Not just healing, connection, understanding, bond. No words were spoken. None were needed. She looked toward the open corridor. Then back at him. She was ready. Together they walked forward. Not as soldier and alien, not as enemies, but as something new the galaxy had never seen before. The stars above Varela 9 burned brighter that night, as if the universe itself had paused to watch what came next. Word of the outpost's awakening had spread faster than fire across dry grass. Both the Human Alliance and the Alien High Command had scrambled to intercept the new threat. Or perhaps the new hope. Caleb stood on the ridge with the girl beside him, no longer wounded, no longer hunted. She had become something more, no longer only alien, no longer only herself. The fusion of their blood had created a new being, one neither side could explain or control. The air shimmered with energy. The trees swayed not from wind, but from something deeper. A pulse, a heartbeat. The mountain had become alive with her presence. In the valley below, two forces gathered. On one side, the alien soldiers who had once called her their own. On the other, human troops with orders to capture or destroy anything unknown. Both sides aimed weapons. Both shouted commands. Both prepared for war. But she stepped forward, glowing softly beneath the cold sky. Her hands were raised, empty, peaceful. Caleb followed her, his weapon lowered, trusting her completely. The first shot never came. Instead, light spread from her body in a wide circle, a wave that touched both armies. Soldiers froze, weapons humming uselessly. The glow spread through their suits, their skin, even their eyes. It didn't harm them. It showed them memories, visions, feelings not their own. A glimpse into the moment she almost died. The pain, the fear, the human who bled for her. The bond that followed. The transformation that no science could undo. Some dropped their rifles, some wept. Others simply knelt. Then she spoke. Her voice echoed in every language, carried by something not sound but memory. She did not beg. She did not threaten. She offered a choice. Caleb stood beside her in silence. He had no speech to give. His actions had already spoken. One act of compassion had rewritten a war. Slowly, leaders stepped forward, one from each side. Their armor heavy, their faces scarred. They looked at her, then at him. And without words, they knelt. The fighting stopped. The mountains held their breath. And for the first time since the invasion began, peace was no longer a dream. Caleb turned to her. She smiled softly. Not just with gratitude, but with understanding. They had saved each other, not with power, but with a choice. The outpost behind them became a sanctuary. A place where both sides could meet, learn, heal. She remained there as guardian, as symbol, as the first of something new. He stayed too, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Their story was no longer just survival. It was the beginning of something greater.